My dad had always been good at reading people. He rarely judged anyone, but when my sister Amber started dating Gary, something about him immediately felt wrong. Gary was 23, drove a leased BMW, wore expensive watches, and constantly talked about business deals and crypto investments. My dad never accused him of anything, he just watched. Then Amber announced that Gary was taking her to the Bahamas for her birthday. The next morning, Dad unexpectedly stayed home from work and spent hours in the garage working on some old equipment. When Mum asked what he was doing, he simply said, "Trust me." A few days later, Gary came over for dinner and started bragging about another investment opportunity. While Gary was away from the table, Dad quietly began investigating his background. What he discovered was shocking. Gary wasn't successful, he was drowning in debt and had a history of fraud, but Dad still needed proof of what Gary intended to do to Amber. Eventually, the evidence confirmed his suspicions. Gary was planning to marry Amber, gain her family's trust, and convince us to invest money in his supposed business. Dad confronted him privately. He laid out the evidence and gave Gary one choice: end the relationship peacefully or face the consequences of what he'd been planning. Gary chose to leave. He told Amber that he'd been unfaithful. She was heartbroken, but eventually moved on. A few months later, Gary was arrested in connection with a larger financial scam. That's when Mum asked Dad why he hadn't simply told Amber the truth from the beginning. Dad just shrugged. Sometimes protecting someone means letting them believe they're making their own choice. Years later, Amber brought home another boyfriend. His name was Pete. He was a kindergarten teacher, drove an old Honda, and volunteered at an animal shelter. Dad barely looked at him, then he smiled. For the first time, I realized Dad wasn't suspicious of everyone. He just knew exactly when someone deserved his attention. Subscribe for more unbelievable family stories and upcoming videos.